My sister faked cancer to sabotage my Ivy League dreams, so I exposed her lies and watched her life collapse. 2 years later, she's at my door crying, asking if we can ever be sisters again. My sister was ready to destroy anything and everything to one-up me, including herself. Growing up, I always tried to be best friends with my older sister Sasha. I bought all my clothes based on what her wardrobe looked like, and whenever she started a hobby, I would start it too. But instead of wanting to be my best friend, she started seeing me as her #1 opponent. Whenever she'd come home after winning an award in running, dance, or any other hobby of hers I copied, I was the first one she told. Bet you couldn't do this, could you? She'd then wave the award in my face. But instead of crying or getting jealous, I'd hug her super tight and tell her how happy I was for her. But this just made her even angrier, and she'd shove me away, sometimes so hard that my entire body would fall onto the floor. But it wasn't until my 12th birthday that I finally gave up trying, because our parents got me a pink glittery bike, one that Sasha always wanted. As soon as I unboxed it, I ran up to her room and banged on her door. When I brought her into the back garden and showed her what I got, I asked if she wanted to be the first one to ride it. Sure, she said, with a smirk plastered on her face. She told me she wanted to ride it on the road, and since she was 16, I figured she was old enough to ride responsibly. But instead of sitting in the seat, she locked eyes with me and threw it into the open road right as a truck passed by and destroyed it. My heart broke, and that was the moment my childhood ended. I vowed to never tell her about my achievements, or any updates on my life for that matter. Unfortunately, when I was 14, I won first place at the regional cross-country championships, because Sasha hadn't moved out for college yet, so she heard my parents talking about it. But to my surprise, instead of flipping out, she asked to come to my awards ceremony. I enthusiastically said yes, because I thought she was trying to rebuild our friendship. On the big day, the coach announced the winners in order of lowest to highest, except he never called out my name, because right before he could, Sasha dramatically collapsed onto the floor. Everyone turned around to face my family and ask if she was okay. She didn't wake back up until you could hear the ambulance sirens outside. "Oh, sorry, everyone," she announced, jolting straight up. "I just didn't eat enough food today." Everyone marveled about how glad they were to see she was okay. I just rolled my eyes. From there, I kept pretty much everything in my life a secret from not just my sister and parents, but my entire family. It definitely made life lonelier, and it took a lot to kill the desire of running to my parents when I got good news. Fast forward to when I was 17 and got accepted into an Ivy League university. My parents found the acceptance letter before me. When I got home, my mom yelled, "Honey, we are so proud of you." Without missing a beat, they started taking a bunch of pictures of me with my acceptance letter to plaster all over their social media. And for the first time in years, I let them be happy for me, because I figured that Sasha couldn't do anything to ruin it. But again, I was wrong, because the next day, I woke up to my parents barging into my room and throwing all my stuff into black bin bags. "Your sister has just been diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. She'll need one room for her stuff and one to sleep in." My mom's voice was shaking, and my dad had tears in his eyes. I instantly knew she was faking it. I just needed some sort of evidence. Sasha came home later that day with a smirk on her face. Her hair was completely bald, which is funny because I had seen a photo on her story with her hair blowing in the wind just a month's weeks back. Still, she lied down and slept, said the cancer was tiring her out. That night, I cooked her favorite meal, luring her into delusional security. After 2 weeks of me sleeping on the couch, Sasha hosted a party to commemorate her own bravery. She invited everyone we knew, including some girls from my class. Perfect. Halfway through, I tapped on my Fanta glass with a fork. "Sasha, make a speech! We're so proud of you!" She immediately recited a speech that I had heard her practice dozens of times in the bathroom mirror. She was halfway through her fake tears when I walked up to her and hugged her. And just as I was about to pull away, I peeled off the bald cap. Her blonde hair unraveled down to her waist. Sasha screamed. My mom gasped so hard I thought her lungs were about to shrivel up. While everyone processed what was going on, I turned on the TV on full volume. There, I broadcasted a clip I had captured of Sasha practicing her speech in the mirror when she thought no one was looking. And instead of finally facing up to her lies, she stormed out of the house and drove away. I went upstairs to my room and let my parents deal with saying goodbye to all the guests. The next morning, I woke up to my mom slapping me across the face. "How could you have embarrassed Sasha like that while she's battling with cancer?" I just stared at her, my cheek burning. My mom said Sasha told them I'd ripped out her hair extensions, that she'd spent thousands on realistic ones because she didn't want people to pity her for being bald. She didn't want to flaunt her wealth by admitting she could afford such expensive extensions. I couldn't believe my parents bought that story, but they did. They completely believed that their daughter with cancer had secret hair extensions that I cruelly exposed. Over the next few days, things got worse. Sasha came back with a stack of medical documents. She had appointment cards and test results and even a treatment schedule. I don't know how she faked them, but they looked real enough to convince my parents. The letterhead looked authentic and everything. Then she started telling them I was emotionally abusive, that I'd been bullying her about the cancer diagnosis. She said I was jealous of the attention she was getting and trying to make everything about my college acceptance. My parents scheduled an emergency therapy appointment for me. They told the therapist I was showing signs of narcissistic personality disorder and needed immediate help. The therapist seemed skeptical at first, but my parents were so convinced that she agreed to see me twice a week. Those sessions were brutal. I had to sit there while this woman asked me why I felt the need to hurt my sick sister. She wanted to explore my jealousy issues and my need for attention. I tried explaining that Sasha was lying, but that just made me look worse. The therapist would nod and write notes about my denial. Meanwhile, Sasha took over the house. She'd host these little gatherings where extended family would come visit the brave cancer patient. She'd make these subtle comments about how hard it was having an unsupportive sister. Nothing obvious enough to call out, but enough to poison everyone against me. I started documenting everything. Every time she slipped up or contradicted herself, I wrote it down. When she claimed to have chemo on Tuesday but posted selfies at the mall, I screenshotted everything. I was building a case, but I needed something concrete. One night, I came home late from school. I'd been working on a big project in the library. When I opened my laptop, the screen was cracked and it wouldn't turn on. All my schoolwork was gone. Years of essays and projects just destroyed. The keyboard was bent like someone had stepped on it. I found Sasha in the kitchen making tea. She smiled at me and said technology could be so unreliable. Then she asked if I'd backed up my college application materials. The way she said it made it clear she knew exactly what happened to my laptop. I spent the next week rebuilding everything from memory. I had to redo assignments and beg teachers for extensions. Some believed me, but others thought I was making excuses. My grades started slipping from the stress. At school, rumors started spreading that I was unstable. Someone told everyone I'd attacked my cancer-stricken sister at her own support party. People I'd known for years started avoiding me in the halls. My lunch table slowly emptied until I was eating alone. Then came the letter from my dream college. They'd received an anonymous tip about concerning behavior and wanted to discuss my acceptance. Someone had reported that I was bullying a family member with terminal illness. They needed to investigate before finalizing my enrollment. I knew it was Sasha, but I couldn't prove it. She'd been so careful to stay anonymous, but she made one mistake. She used specific phrases in the complaint that she'd used before. I recognized her writing style immediately. I decided to get creative with my evidence gathering. I bought tiny voice recorders and hid them around the house. I wanted to catch her admitting something when she thought no one was listening. I placed them behind picture frames, under tables, anywhere she might let her guard down. The recordings picked up more than I expected. Late at night, I'd hear Sasha on the phone laughing about how gullible our parents were. Her voice carried through the thin walls between our rooms, dripping with contempt as she described their worried faces. She'd brag to her friends about getting my room and ruining my college plans, punctuating each revelation with cruel giggles. Sometimes she'd even mimic our mother's concerned voice, exaggerating it until her friends cackled on the other end. I saved every single file to multiple cloud accounts, creating backup after backup with shaking hands. Each recording was labeled with the date and time, organized in folders that documented weeks of deception. But I needed someone who'd actually listen. My parents were too deep in denial, their eyes glazing over whenever I tried to bring up inconsistencies in Sasha's story. They'd change the subject or suddenly remember urgent errands whenever I mentioned her behavior. That's when I remembered Aunt Helen. She'd always been skeptical of Sasha even when we were kids, catching her in small lies at family gatherings. She was the only one who'd noticed when Sasha claimed to win a spelling bee at a school that didn't even have one. Helen lived 2 hours away, but maybe she'd help. I called her from a payphone at school since Sasha monitored my cell. The phone booth smelled like rust and old gum, tucked behind the gymnasium where no one would see me. The metal receiver felt cold against my ear as I fed quarters into the slot, my hands fumbling with the coins. Helen picked up on the third ring, her warm voice instantly making me feel safer. I told her everything as fast as I could, words tumbling over each other like water breaking through a dam. She stayed quiet for a long time, just breathing steadily on the other end, then said she'd suspected something was off when Sasha's cancer story kept changing. First it was lymphoma, then leukemia, then some rare form that kept shifting names. Helen agreed to come visit that weekend. She said she'd pretend it was just to support Sasha, but really she wanted to see the evidence I'd collected. Her voice had that determined edge I remembered from when she'd helped me with math homework years ago. Finally, someone believed me. I hung up feeling hopeful for the first time in weeks, the spring in my step drawing curious looks from passing students. That Friday, I got home to find my recordings were gone. Every single device had vanished from their hiding spots. The drawer under my desk was empty, dust outlines showing where the recorders had been. The box in my closet cleared out. Even the backup USB drives I'd hidden in an old shoe were missing. Sasha was sitting on the couch reading a magazine like nothing happened, her legs tucked underneath her. The magazine was one of those celebrity gossip rags, her fingers lazily turning pages. When I asked about them, she said she didn't know what I was talking about, not even glancing up from her reading. Her voice was innocent, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this moment. I still had the cloud backups, but now I was paranoid. That night, I changed all my passwords and set up two-factor authentication on everything. I even created dummy accounts with fake evidence in case she got into those too. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I built layer after layer of digital protection. I used password managers and security questions based on things only I would know, references to books Sasha had never read, and places she'd never been. Helen arrived Saturday morning with a casserole and a concerned expression. She wore her good pearls, the ones she saved for important occasions, and her gray hair was freshly styled. She hugged Sasha and told her how brave she was, her acting skills rivaling any performance I'd seen. Sasha ate it up, going on about her treatment and how hard everything was. She even managed to make her voice quaver at just the right moments. I watched from the kitchen, biting my tongue so hard I tasted copper. The casserole sat on the counter, still warm, smelling like childhood comfort I couldn't access. Later, Helen asked to see my room to help me reorganize since I'd given it up for Sasha. It was a clever excuse that wouldn't raise suspicion. Once we were alone, I showed her everything on my phone. The recordings, the screenshots, the timeline of lies I'd meticulously documented. Each piece of evidence was annotated with context and cross-references. Her face got darker with each piece of evidence, her jaw tightening as she listened to Sasha's cruel laughter. She had to sit down on my bed when she heard the part about Sasha planning to intercept my college acceptance letter. We spent an hour going through it all. Helen pointed out inconsistencies I'd missed, like how Sasha claimed to have chemo every Monday but was somehow never sick on Tuesdays, or how her medical documents all had the same watermark pattern, even though they were supposedly from different offices. She showed me how the fonts matched perfectly, the margins identical. skeptical. She even noticed the medical terminology was slightly off, like someone had researched terms online rather than copying from real documents. Her years working at a law firm handling medical malpractice cases had trained her eye for authentic medical paperwork. Helen said she'd talked to my parents, but we needed to be strategic. If we came on too strong, they'd get defensive and shut down completely. She'd seen it before with her own siblings, how confrontation could backfire when people were emotionally invested in a lie. She suggested waiting until dinner when everyone was relaxed. I agreed, even though waiting felt impossible, my stomach churning with anxiety. We spent the afternoon pretending everything was normal, helping Mom in the kitchen and listening to Dad's work stories. At dinner, Sasha was in full performance mode. She pushed food around her plate and sighed about how the treatment culled her appetite. She'd taken exactly 3 small bites of chicken, cutting them into tiny pieces for maximum effect. My mom immediately offered to make her something else, jumping up from the table. Dad rubbed her shoulder and said she was so strong, his voice thick with emotion. The dining room felt suffocating with all the manufactured sympathy. Helen started casual. She asked about Sasha's treatment plan and which hospital she was using. Her tone was conversational, like she was asking about the weather. Sasha gave vague answers about privacy and not wanting to burden everyone with details. Helen pushed a little more, mentioning she had a friend who was an oncologist who might help. She even pulled out her phone like she was ready to make the connection right there. Sasha's eye twitched, but she covered it by dabbing at fake tears. She said she appreciated the offer, but her team was handling everything. When Helen asked for the oncologist's name to send a thank you card, Sasha suddenly needed to use the bathroom, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She walked slowly, playing up the weakness, one hand trailing along the wall for support. While she was gone, Helen looked at my parents. She asked if they'd actually gone to any appointments with Sasha. My mom admitted they hadn't because Sasha said she needed to be independent. She looked embarrassed, twisting her napkin in her lap. Dad added that Sasha was protecting them from the harsh reality, his hands folded tightly on the table. His knuckles were white with tension he didn't even realize he was carrying. Helen pulled out her phone and showed them my evidence. At first, they didn't want to look, turning their heads away like children avoiding vegetables. But Helen insisted, going through each recording and screenshot methodically. She had them organized in a presentation, professional and undeniable. My mom's face went white when she heard Sasha laughing about fooling them, her hand flying to her mouth. Dad's expression shifted from disbelief to horror to rage in the span of 30 seconds. Sasha came back to find us all staring at her. The silence was deafening, broken only by the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. She immediately started crying about how we were ganging up on a cancer patient. When that didn't work, she accused me of faking the recordings with AI. Then she said I'd drugged her to make her say those things, her lies becoming more desperate and wild. Each new excuse contradicted the last. A house of cards